What's up, guys? I'm Nobody Special, and we're going to do an update today on the supply chain chaos. We've had a couple of developments over the last week, and I want to get into some of those now. Before we do that, if you guys wouldn't mind giving me a thumbs up, subscribing to my channel, that would really help me out. Thank you very much. I would be forever in your debt. Now that that's out of the way, let's get right into this. Here's a headline. This is on Bloomberg. U.S. container ship bottleneck lurches near its February record. It wasn't as big of a story back in February, but the congestion at U.S. ports was really, really bad at February, and it came down in the early spring. But we're starting to see that pick up again. And the reason this is very important is because we're just getting into the peak cargo season as U.S. retailers place their orders for their December inventory for Christmas sales. So another way to think about it, if you're like me and you live from the shore, it's like the Tuesday before the 4th of July, but traffic is already bumper to bumper on the highway. Oh my God, what's it going to be like when the 4th of July gets here? So that's the situation going on in our ports right now. So we're just going to look at some of the numbers here. Here's part of the headline. Average wait time rises above 6 days after declining mid-year. Now, I want you to keep in mind, these are massive ships with big crews. They burn a lot of fuel. Even just sitting there, they're burning fuel for power, for electrical on board. They have generators running, and they're not moving any cargo. So they're just sitting there burning money. So a ship sitting there for 6 days, that is a big deal. And there's a couple of details in here I wanted to talk about. Right here it's saying 37 ships were anchored, awaiting a berth space outside the twin ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach as of late Sunday, the most since early February. That's almost double the length of the queue in mid-July and close to a record of the 40 that was anchored on February 1st. So here in this chart, you can see this is a chart, a daily chart of the number of ships that were anchored outside the port of Los Angeles waiting to offload cargo. And you can see that peak from January to February, and then we came down in the spring. But oh man, look at this chart since mid-June, and we're only just getting into the peak season. So this thing is going to get a lot worse in the near future. So keep an eye on this. I can tell you one of the things, my wife and I had the conversation yesterday about doing our Christmas shopping early this year because we're not sure what's going to happen in the fall and in the early winter. And, I don't want to face my kids if they don't get what's on their Christmas list. So we're kind of like trying to scratch our heads and come up with some creative ideas for how we can work Santa Claus into this equation. The elves are busy or something, or, some of the elves got sick or some of the elves quit or something, and that we have to come up with our Christmas list early this year because, especially for my oldest, she kind of changes what she's into very rapidly. So it's going to be hard for us to guess what she wants for Christmas in December. But that's the state of things right now. We risk not being able to get anything because if you think you're going to do your Christmas shopping on December 21st and Amazon Prime that stuff to your front door in time for Christmas, you got another thing coming. So it's time to start thinking about that now. Anyways, back to some of the numbers here. The average wait for berth space was 6.2 days compared with 5.7 in late June. And the number peaked at 8 days back in April. So this number is going to get worse. And just to give you an idea, I want to bring up marine traffic here. This is showing ships at anchor outside the port of Los Angeles. And I went and counted these green dots, which are almost all cargo ships, and I came up with about 39. I'm sure one or two of these may not be a cargo ship. But this is very real. I mean, these are just boats waiting. And I saw an interview on CNBC yesterday where the director of the Port of Los Angeles mentioned something about there was another 20 or 29 ships inbound. And I don't think they can offload them very fast. So, well, I mean, they are. I'm not trying to take cheap shots at dock workers here. They're doing everything they can as fast as they can. There's just so much stuff coming in. These ports are not built to handle this kind of flow. So they're not going to be able to unload 20 ships in time for these 20 ships that are on their way to get there. So this problem's going to keep getting worse. And, we're seeing the same thing on the other side of the U.S., as some cargo now is being routed In the other direction, here's ports in Georgia. Look at all these ships sitting out here anchored, just waited. And, these ports aren't as busy as the ones on the West Coast. But look at that. And then, if we move up north here, here's New York, New Jersey. Not as bad. Not as bad, but I'm starting to hear stories or see headlines that things are starting to back up over here. Now, the other thing, end of the story, that's talking about the congestion here in the States. But there's another story developing as it's getting harder to load the ships over in China. So, we can't offload them very fast here, but there's problems brewing in China. And kudos to Economic Ninja. He spotted this story a couple of days ago, and he was very quick with getting a video out on it. The port of Ningbo, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, has been shut for 6 days now. They had one COVID case among the dock workers. One COVID case. And China shut down the third busiest port. And that was 6 days ago. They've been shut down for 6 days. I need to drive that home. Something's up there. To keep their third busiest port shut down for 6 days because of one COVID case. That doesn't pass the sniff test to me. So, one of two things is going on at this port. Either there are way more than one COVID cases at Ningbo, and that this is the propaganda number that the government is releasing. Again, you can't really trust numbers that come out of China because it's all filtered through CCP sensors. So either COVID is running like wildfire through these dock workers, and to reassure the public that all is well, they're saying it's only one COVID case. Or, my other theory is that China sees what's going on in the supply chain, and they see that it's adding to inflationary pressures here in the U.S., and they're deciding to wage a little bit of economic warfare, and they figure shutting down one of their busiest ports can add to the congestion in the shipping lanes, or could make it more expensive to ship things across the pond, which would make it more expensive on our shelves. Now, that would be, China kind of shooting themselves in the foot, right? Because this is their ability to sell their crap into our markets that they're messing with. So that also hurts China. But China may be willing to take some economic hardship if it inflicts hardship on us overseas. So that's the other. Let's keep an eye on that story. I'm not sure what's going on there. But inflation is a very real risk to the U.S. economy right now. And if you're a bad actor like China and your interests are opposed to ours, then playing games and making inflation worse for the U.S. is certainly something that they might consider. So this port has been shut down for 6 days. Now, there's some mention in this article that there are other ports in China that are able to pick up some of the slack, like 25% of the slack. But basically, this is slowing down the rate of ships being loaded. Now, this will add to the cost, but it may also alleviate, at least partially, some of the congestion at our ports. Because if there's fewer ships leaving China, eventually that's going to result in fewer ships arriving on the West Coast. Keep an eye on that. And then another thing that's going on, another thing aggravating the situation in the supply chain. It used to be most cargo was moved by ocean, and then air freight was your fastest way to move things. Well, now with the price of ocean freight rising so much, I think a lot more people are turning to air cargo because that price delta isn't so big anymore. Well, not for long, because now we're having issues with air cargo. And this headline says, pandemic rules bring China air cargo chaos as ground staff quit and rates soar. So now it's getting more expensive to ship things through the air. And what's going on? Ground handling staff in China are quitting in droves over new COVID rules, triggering the cancellation of hundreds of flights and the prospect of freight rates reaching extraordinary levels. More inflation. Now, there's something important here I wanted to. Where is it? According to one Chinese forwarder, long handling times at Shanghai Pudong saw some cargo flights taking off empty over the weekend. That's messy. if they've got empty planes taking off out of Shanghai, something's not right there. Expect cargo handling times are 6 to 10 hours, which is 2 to 3 times longer than normal. So, problems on the ocean, problems in the air. When you get here, problems on land. The situation with our truckers hasn't gotten any better. So, long story short, folks, these problems in the supply chain are getting worse. Think about doing your Christmas shopping early this year. And another thing, if your furnace is making that rattling noise, or if there's something not right with your car, don't let that sit, because we don't know what the supply chain is going to look like in a few months. It may be near impossible to get anything. I mean, I'm talking to friends on the phone right now. Guys are having, my one friend is into photography. He's having a hard time finding photography equipment. My other buddy was looking to buy a bike, and he said the guy at the bike shop said he has no idea when he's going to get this model that he wants in, and that everything is taking forever to get here. So, I mean, these are anecdotal cases taken one at a time. That's not a trend, but all these things in aggregate, it's getting hard to get everything. So don't let these little problems sit. If you think you need a part for something, or if something's starting to make a noise or acting up, take care of that stuff now, or live with the consequences. So a couple of days ago, I did a video on this very subject, and I talked about one of the ways I was looking to invest this trend was a company called Danaos. So I want to look at that now because something interesting happened. Here's my disclaimer again. Nobody Special is not a financial advisor. Do not touch a trade based on what you hear from me. I want you to do your own research, your own due diligence, arrive at a decision that's right for you based on your unique situation. Okay. That being said, here's what I did. I have been watching this Danaos company. Now, I mentioned in my video earlier that I bought this back in December at about $20, and that it was difficult for me to buy it because the price had already quadrupled back in December when I bought it. But the situation at U.S. ports was only just developing back then, and it was still at a relatively low PE even after quadrupling. So I bought the shares, and it ended up being a pretty good trade. Because you can see the monster run that it had through the first half of the year. It peaked at around $78. I sold about 2/3 of my shares in the high 60s. I took out 1/3 of my, that was my cost basis of my original purchase. I took that out in cash. So now I'm playing with the house money. I took another third of my shares and sold them, and I rolled that into call options. And I was able to make a little bit more profit as it ran up a few more dollars. I have since sold those call options. So now I'm down to just 1/3 of my original position. And we've had this little consolidation period here. And I want to zoom in on this because in my video last week, I talked about how it had come down below this 50-day moving average, which is here in purple, and that it had been kind of struggling to retake that, but that the underlying situation at the ports and with the shipping still supports higher earnings for this company because the price of moving a 40-foot cargo container had recently passed $20,000, where it was $2,000 last year. And I had mentioned in that video that I was watching for this stock to retake its 50-day moving average. Now, at the time, we were down around here. I believe it was around the 5th or the 6th. And if you see, we retook that 50-day moving average. This is on the 10th now. We traded above it for a few days. And then we came down, and just yesterday, you see this candle yesterday, we retested the 50-day, came down below it, but bounced right back up and closed above it. So that was the signal I've been looking for with this company, the retest and recapture of the 50-day moving average. So I added to my position in Danaos yesterday. And it's down a couple of cents. It looks like it's back up a couple of cents now. But I think after this long consolidation period since the end of June, and zooming out and looking at this trend, I think we are back off to the races, and I think this one is heading to 100 before the end of the year. So, again, don't touch a trade based on what you hear from me. I just put ideas out there. I want you guys to do your own research, and I'm just telling you what I did. And I can tell you, I could use a win because I've had a couple of real bad trades lately. Um, my platinum trade I did a video on a few days ago has not gone well. I'm still in that one, but it's gone down. My silver junior miners trade has not gone well. Um, my trade in hack based on the some of the cyber attacks has kind of traded sideways. It hasn't been a bad trade, but suffice it to say, I've had my share of losers this year. So again, I want you guys to do your own research. I'm just putting these ideas out there, but this is one that I like, and I'm gonna keep watching this one closely. So that's all I got for you guys today. If you've got more information on what's going on in this supply chain, even if it's just anecdotal cases of something you've been waiting weeks for or something, I would love to hear about it. Let me know in the comments below. I'm always looking for new ideas for new content and new videos, so you never know. You might find there might be some hidden gems in there. So feel free to let me know. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video, guys. I really appreciate it. Please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, hit that notification bell. It would really help me out. In the meantime, live small and dream big.